It requires them to manage a team. So what happens is you take that star IC and then you create a team around them. So that person then hires 5 people to manage. And those
then
5 people are not store. Yeah, they stop working. They just start managing. Yes. Well, maybe you get like 20% more production out of that 6-person unit than you would have just out of the star. But you're spending 5 times more money. So it makes no sense. And the problem is it cascades. So, that IC becomes a manager. They hire 5 people. Then those 5 people, one of them's a star and says, well, I want to be a manager. And all the organizational pressure is to keep building more and more teams and more layers.
Here's the quote from Mark Zuckerberg to illustrate your point from a recent all hands meeting. I don't think you want a management structure that's just managers managing the people who are doing the work.
Yes, it's the problem of infinite delegation. Every star builds a team around them to delegate the work, but then they hire a team to delegate the work to. And pretty soon the most junior interns in the company are doing all the work and all the best people are just managing. So it's actually a huge problem. And I think that I'd say that a lot of CEOs don't quite understand the problem because they think that all they have to do is increase the number of reports that managers have. It's not. You also have to reduce the number of layers in the company. And just the ultimate example of this, just to put a point on it, was at Twitter, what we saw is that when Elon went in to basically do a riff at Twitter, the first question he asked in the engineering department is, who's checked in code? And they looked at the code repository, and over 50% of the engineering department had not checked in code in months. And you want to know the reason for that is because the engineers were told that if you want to be a manager in this company, you don't code. Managers don't code. Only ICs code. And no one wants to be an IC. No one ambitious wants to be an IC. They all want to get promoted. So it all gets
Explain what an IC is.
Just individual contributor.
Yeah.
So the whole thing turned upside down because of this idea that, again, ambitious people want to be managers and managers don't do the real work.
Yeah. It's a cowboys who don't know how to ride horses. It's a dangerous precedent to set. What are your takeaways, Chamath, from what happened at Facebook when you look at it and the pressure that was put on the ripping of the stock, even though they're down 2% year over year in terms of advertising revenue?
There's a guy on my team sent me this chart. He did a pretty detailed technical analysis of Facebook. Nick, can you please put that image up there? So basically this shows
This is really technical.
This is the first time Facebook mentioned the word metaverse. In Q2 of 21, on the earnings call, they mentioned it 20 times. Yeah. And the gray line here is the stock price. So as they kept mentioning it, the stock price just, reacted as it did. But Q4 of 22 was the first time that the word efficiency exceeded the word metaverse. And you saw the stock price rip up. So what's happened at Facebook is really interesting because I think it transitioned to what's generally called an X-growth company, which means that people are now looking at a business that has essentially gotten to its peak size. And now what they're looking at is its ability to generate cash flow. The cash flow generation or cash flow yield of the business was like 3.5%. But they're making enormous cuts, both in CapEx as well as headcount over time. They're getting their expenses under control. And all of that should drive up their free cash flow yield. And so I think why people got very excited is there are very few X-growth stocks that you can own that can just compound and crunch ginormous amounts of money. And these guys are in an incredible position to do it, more than $100+ billion of revenue. And if you get these costs under control and get efficient, get the employee base down to 30 or 40,000 over time, this is a thing that just spits out just ginormous amounts of cash. And so it's
back
really
to value investing and Warren Buffett, that means the earnings per share go way up.
Yeah. Like the Facebook PE is quite modest, actually. Now, I actually put back in stock-based comp and its PE is about 11.
So still reasonable.
If you go back to the Ben Graham analysis, this is a company that perfectly meets that criteria of you can buy it at a PE that's basically 2 times the risk-free rate. And so I think it's an incredible stock now that you can own. Because if they keep grinding out all of these kind of free cash flow gains, man, they'll just have enormous amounts of money. They already announced a $40 billion buyback. The thing to keep in mind is Apple had a moment like this. And when Apple went X growth, they did the brilliant thing, which is they said, we're going to borrow heavily and we're going to return cash. I may have posted this in the group chat to you guys. By 2025, Apple will have exceeded $1 trillion of cash distributions. I mean, that is just nuts.
Does that include buybacks in cash distributions?
Buybacks and dividends. And so Facebook now, you can credibly see a path where Facebook could chunk out hundreds of billions of dollars of total shareholder value returned over the next 4 or 5 years. And so, you know, for value investors, it's somewhat of a kind of a no-brainer. I mean, nothing's a no-brainer, but
yeah,
really, really attractive value fundamentals right now.
I mean, you did see Warren Buffett buying Apple. I think it's his largest position. You're going to see him probably do the same with Facebook. There was an interesting mass extinction event tweet that went on that's related to all of this. Tom Laverio, a GP, general partner at IVP, which is a venture firm, tweeted the following thread. There is a mass extinction event coming for early and mid-stage companies, late 23 and 24. It'll make the 2008 financial crisis look quaint for startups below. I explain when, how, and why. And we'll start to offer some detailed advice. Basically, 4 in 5 early stage startups, he claims, have less than 12 months of runway, according to a Q4 survey of 450 founders by January Ventures. He sees late 23, 24 when this will all come home to roost. Mark Suster from Upfront Ventures, friend of the pod, replied with the following: precisely our internal analysis, 5,000 seed, 2.5 million raised or above, A and B companies, those are 3 different categories, funded in the last 4 years. We estimate 50% will go out of business. Loss ratios in the last 7 years have been artificially low due to excess capital, as we just discussed previously with the never-ending bridge.
We've talked about this before. If you look back over 40 years of venture capital, the average top quartile fund distributes 1.6 or 1.7x the capital they raise. Even though now we've gone through a period where people have shown these unbelievable markups, right? TVPIs, the total value of paid-in capital, distributions have not really budged that much. Distributions are still modest. They're below 2x. And so we have to go through what's called mean reversion, right? We have to go back to the historic statistical average, which means that a 50 to 60% mortality rate seems pretty reasonable. By the way, in the dot-com bubble, that's what we went through. You know, in 2001 to 2005, we had a 50% mortality rate.
At the seed stage, I mean, you kind of expect 70% to go out. Series A, maybe a little bit less. Freeberg, what are you seeing on the streets? You're investing in startups.
Yeah, look, I think that
Is there an opportunity, by the way, also in here? So what are you seeing? But is there an opportunity in this group of, this cohort of companies which seem to be upside down and or in a tsunami right now?